So as a former lifelong Democrat, the last Democrat I voted for was Obama, right? And I voted for him twice. And then in 2016, I voted third party. And then, of course, voted for Trump, in 2020 and 2024. And it was funny because, back in those days, like you didn't really tell people like who you voted for, right? It's something that was taboo. It's just something people didn't do. But as time gone on, people got a little bit more comfortable, as we became more divided, people got more comfortable saying who they voted for, unless you were a Trump supporter, right? I saw at that time it was much more easier to say you voted for a Democrat rather than someone that voted for a Republican, or that's what it felt like. And this was even more true during the pandemic, right? It seemed like more people were afraid to come out and say they voted for Trump because there were going to be so much backlash. Okay, and this leads me to my story for when I first told my friends that I voted for Trump. And it was funny because we were in a group chat, right? And the majority of my friends, not to say all of them, were obviously Democrats. They're liberal. And I remember, having the conversations, right? And we would talk about, obviously politics would get into the conversation. And then obviously as the conversation going on, I would say things that would counter, some of the narrative when it came to, Democrats and Republicans, or things when it came to Trump, or when it came to Democrats especially. And it got to a point where one of my friends eventually said, like, "Hey Ralph, like, did you vote for Trump?" And me being a person that, I don't really back down, and I'm not a person that likes to lie a lot. I'm not saying I don't lie, but I'm a type of person that's pretty straightforward. I said, yeah, I without hesitation, I was like, yup, and I'd do it again. And of course, in that chat, there was a lot of laughter. There was a couple of laughter, people laughing and stuff like that, and talking about I'm crazy and everything. Voting for Trump, because like I said, Trump is, if you're someone on the left, is like, Trump is a joke, right? Like, Trump is not a serious person, right? A lot of people on the left don't take Trump serious. Okay, they got a bunch of negative things to say about him, but obviously now it's not a joke, right? Especially after the 4 years of Biden, that laughing kind of stopped, right? Especially when you got a comparison between Trump as president for 4 years and then you got Joe Biden for 4 years. That laughing pretty much stopped. But it, the one thing I was worried about, because remember, this was during the pandemic, right? For one, it was I voted for Trump, and two, I didn't take the vaccine. So those are like two things where it got to a point where I almost thought I was going to lose friends, because obviously during that pandemic, you got a lot of people on the left, liberals, like, yeah, did you get the vaccine shot? Nope. Do you plan on getting the vaccine shot? Nope. And then you also vote for Trump. So I'll be lying to you if I didn't think I thought I was gonna lose some friends. And if that was gonna be the case, then so be it, right? Because I'm not gonna then change what I believe because you're worried about losing friends. I don't want to lose friends, but you gotta stick up for the things that you believe in, especially when you're someone that used to believe in what the Democrats were pushing out there, and you learn the actual truth about the Democrats, and you see what a bunch of frauds they are, and how corrupt and how bad they are, especially for the society and the black community in particular. There was no way I'm gonna trying to act like I was a supporter of them, because I was gonna say everything I could say about them, how bad they are and how corrupt they are and how bad they are for the American people. All right, but I'd be lying to you if I didn't think I was gonna lose some friends. But luckily for me, I got a bunch of good friends that I didn't lose any friends. They know, because we've known each other for a long time, so they know what kind of person I am, right? Were they probably disappointed? I'm sure. Were conversations awkward at first? Yeah, it was a little awkward, because you got a bunch of liberal friends who want to speak a certain way, and then they got that one person that's a Trump supporter. They got to be careful with how they talk, and it's just, for a lot of people, they're not used to that. But I mean, it was. Things have been good. Like, I didn't have to worry about losing any friends, and that's been a good thing. And I think for me, like, the first conversation that was brought up, especially when it comes to actually revealing I was a Trump supporter for the first time, I was never the one to bring up the conversation. Like, when I eventually we got to hanging out, I would never bring up politics, right? Because I understand how touchy it could be, and especially being a Trump supporter, I was like, let me not get into it. But if one of them brought it up, if any of them brought it up, there was no way I was going to avoid the conversation. You just got to make sure that you can handle that conversation, because not everybody can handle that conversation. And especially doing my research, listening to Trump, anybody's going to say anything, bad about them or that's negative, I'm going to back it. I'm going to back that up with facts or information counter to what they believe in. And I remember they brought it up and we had the conversation. I remember one of my friends, we had a conversation for like 5 hours talking about everything from transgenders, men and women, race and stuff like that. It was just, we had a long conversation. It was a good conversation, right? We talked about a lot of things and it wasn't a heavy argument. It was like in a productive conversation where we got to listen to each other and hear what the other side has to say. Because I'll tell you, like, if you're a Democrat, you're somebody on the left, so a lot of them, especially me at the time, we don't tend to hear the other side. I remember saying when I was a Democrat, I used to say, man, like, I'm not listening to these Republicans. I don't even want to hear what they have to say. I was never open to what they had to say because I just thought in my mind, I was like, yeah, whatever they got to say is nonsense. And it wasn't until I started listening where I said, you know what, all right, you know what, that's a good point. I never thought of it that way. So having that conversation with my friends and discussing that, it was a good thing because they at least got to hear it from somebody that they trust. Right, that they say, all right, you know what? I know this type of person, even though I may disagree that he's a Trump supporter or he voted for Trump. At least I know it's coming from a place, a good place, and I trust that he has to say, and I understand that, and I trust his integrity, so I'm going to listen to what he said, and it's a good thing too because even though they don't listen to the other side, whenever they have a question about, Trump's policies or what's going on with Trump, what's Trump trying to do, because they're not watching Fox News or anything of the sort, so they'll come to me and say, hey, so what's going on with Trump here, what's he trying to do there, and especially with the tariffs, that was another thing, like, because a lot of them don't understand. And the thing you got to understand is like I'm in social media space, like I'm always on the internet, right? I do social media, I create content, so I'm connected to it like all the time, like I'm listening, I'm consuming a lot of different channels about in regards to politics and economics and all that stuff. So they don't have that opportunity, right? They go to work, they got to take care of them. When they come home, they got to tend to the children. Their only source of news is watching MSNBC, and we all know MSNBC, all they pushing out is propaganda. So if that's your major source, your news source of news, then you're not going to really get the full picture, right? All you're going to hear is something negative about President Trump. So being able to say, hey, if they got something that they have questions on something, they'll come and talk to me and ask me like what's going on with that, and then I can at least try to be as objective as possible because of course there's a little bit of bias, right? I want to make sure I amp Trump up because I believe he's doing a great job, but I try to be as objective as possible, and I'll throw in some critiques as possible whenever I can, but I'm going to at least help them understand like what Trump is trying to do. Okay. What's his goal? What's his plan? What may work? What can work? What may not work? Just give him the details on that. But it's just so funny. Just this whole process, like revealing to your friends like that you voted for Trump, because it is a scary thing. You think you're gonna lose some friends, but then if they really are your friends, then they're not gonna leave you, right? They're not gonna leave your friend, because I know there's a lot of people that lost friends based on saying they support Trump, and that's unfortunate, but it's just what it is, right? But you gotta stay true to yourself, and if you believe in what Trump is doing, and obviously what the Democrats are about, then you got to stay true to yourself, right? You got to stay true to who you are, and that shows you what kind of person you are. So it's just for a lot of people, it is a scary thing, revealing to your friends who you support, because you don't want to lose these, you don't want to lose these friends, but you got to do what you got to do. And for me, fortunately for me, I didn't really lose too much friends, and I continue to do, say what I got to say, right? So those are my thoughts. Interested to hear your thoughts. Make sure you leave a comment down below, hit the like button, and share. And if you haven't done so already, make sure to subscribe. So you guys take care. Have a good one. Later.